So there's been a lot of conversation about Trump possibly allowing 600,000 Chinese students to come and attend our colleges and universities, and naturally the internet is very outraged by this, and it's giving this energy. I've only seen a few statements on this. I've seen Trump's statement, and then I've also seen Lutnick's statement on explaining why this decision or why this could potentially be the plan going forward. This is Hey Brittany. Welcome back. Alrighty, so Trump recently announced that he is open to having 600,000 Chinese students come to America, and the reason that he gave was that basically if we do not have these students coming over to fill up slots in our American school system, that means that the bottom 15% of colleges would fail and would be in trouble. So what exactly does this mean? First, let's play a clip so that we can hear exactly what he said.
It's a very important relationship. We're going to get along good with China. I hear so many stories about we're not going to allow their students, or we're going to allow their students to come in. We're going to allow, it's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important. But we're going to get along with China.
Okay, so in that clip, Trump is really talking about the relationship that the U.S. has with China, and he's saying that right now we have a good relationship and we're making a lot of money because of the tariffs on China, and he's also talking about wanting to maintain this relationship. And so one of the opinions is that people think that this is some sort of concession that Trump is having to make in this deal that he is trying to make with China in order to help the American economy and also just make relations with foreign countries better. The other argument is that a lot of people see a problem with this because we already have 277 Chinese students here on student visas. And what they're saying is that previously Trump and his administration was making a effort to reduce student visas and limit how many Chinese students were coming to America. And so this would be a complete turnaround from those earlier statements to now say, hey, we're welcoming Chinese students here. They should be able to attend our colleges and universities, and we're not going to keep them out, basically. So people are wondering why this is even happening in the first place. And one of the more obvious reasons why people are concerned about this happening is because they believe that these students are going to be part of the Communist Party, and they're essentially going to be forced to be spies for the Chinese government. So when they come to our colleges and universities, they also are getting exposed to American culture and everything that we're doing here. So there's this responsibility that they have to report back and share information with the Chinese government, and this is obviously to our detriment if they are sharing secrets, sharing information. So in terms of the 600K number, I'm not sure if he means that he's going to allow 600,000 Chinese students in addition to the 277,000 that are already here, or is he going to basically bring in the difference, so almost 400K students instead of 600K, just to make up that difference, or are we going to see even more Chinese people in our school systems? Next, I want to move on to Lutnick's explanation of why this is even the proposed solution to preventing 15% of colleges having to basically go out of business.
Well, the president's point of view is that what would happen if you didn't have those 600,000 students is that you'd empty them from the top, all the students would go up to better schools, and the bottom 15% of universities and colleges would go out of business in America. So his view is he's taking a rational economic view, which is classic Donald Trump.
Okay, so in that clip, they shared a lot of good information to kind of address why this is even a proposed solution. And I was confused on how they even came up with the 600K number. So is this a number that is basically saying that we do not have that many students who are college age in America to make up these slots? Like, what does this number actually represent? And then I'm also curious to know what the bottom 15% of colleges and universities are. So a lot of people are saying, hey, just let those 15% of colleges and universities go out of business if they cannot sustain themselves, and we need this influx of foreign students to come in order to make up the difference. And so a lot of people are saying, like, hey, just let them fail. But I also am wondering what schools exactly fall into the bottom 15%. With what Laura mentioned, she mentioned schools specifically in California. And I know that you can have top colleges all over, like top colleges in the United States as a whole, but each state also has their top colleges. And so I'm wondering how that will impact people who have alma maters, or they have schools where they are legacy and their family has always gone to that school. So maybe schools in that sense won't be impacted. But if this is your alma mater that might be impacted, are you still going to be okay with if that school is part of the bottom 15%, that school going out of business? Because in America, I think it is a rite of passage for students and our younger generation to go to college, to have that college experience, and also learn and get an education, get a degree so that they can go out into the workforce. And so when you eliminate 15% of colleges, you are still taking away those opportunities from students. So the opportunity is you're either losing it to another student who gets those opportunities, or you're just losing those opportunities and nobody gets the opportunity at all. And so I'm not sure what the better solution is, but I think that there's not enough talk about what are these schools that are in the bottom 15%. Like if it was community colleges, I don't know if people would be more okay with that because it's community college. But on the other hand, those are less expensive schools and they are a resource in the community. So you have to think about what this really impacts if you let some of the colleges in our college and university system go out of business. And I really don't like thinking of college as a business, even though it obviously is, because you do pay tuition to go to college, and when you pay tuition, you're giving the school money. They in turn use that money for something else. And I'm also fascinated by the idea of colleges as a business, because I did play college sports, and I know that the universities and colleges make a ton of money off of the student athletes. And so the idea that some schools are struggling, one, as a result of everything with NIL and paying student athletes and all of that, has that cut into their funding in any sort of way. And then in addition, you have always had the colleges that they're not standout schools, but they are an option for people who do not have many options for where to go to college. And so I'm not sure how I feel about that conversation, but I don't know if just letting the bottom 15% of colleges just fail out of business is the right move either. Now, going back to the 600K number, so I really did not like the example of how we talked about if you just take the 600K from the top, you push the Americans up, and then there's the bottom 15%. So I don't understand, why does that 600K have to be at the top? Why do Americans have to move up? You should just let American students fill in whatever slots are there, and then whatever you need filled, that is where the foreign students come in to make up the difference. And so I thought it was interesting the way that he explained it, because he easily could have said, let the American students move up. The bottom 15% is still there. These are where the Chinese students or whatever are coming in to make up the difference, because that is presented in a more America first way, or that is framed in a way that prioritizes American students who want to get an education. And so I was just confused on his wording about that, and I didn't know if, one, he explained it the best way, and then two, where is this 600K number even coming from? And so in regards to the bottom 15%, I did want to look up any data that I could find on this, and this was actually a little bit difficult. I guess there's so many different ways that you can rank a college, and so one thing that I found that basically said how you can kind of rank the colleges to figure out what the bottom 15 are graduation rates, affordability, student outcomes, and campus diversity. And so I don't know if anybody out there knows what the bottom 15% of colleges and universities are, but if you have an idea, definitely let me know in the comment section below. And again, going back to this 600K number, I keep wanting to talk about this number, but what does this number really mean? Does this mean that we don't have 600K of people who are graduating high school and going into college who can go into the college system? Is this a 600K number that is a number over time? Like, are we, I guess in other words, do we have a shortage of students in America who cannot fill up these spots, and that's why we need to bring in foreign people? Or do we have the numbers and we're just not prioritizing those numbers for whatever reason? And so I don't know which way it is, because I really hate to think of the idea that there's a shortage of people who are ready to go into college, people who are graduating over the next year, the next 4 years, whatever the case is. I hate to think that we have a shortage, and that is why we're going to have a lot of empty seats in colleges and universities. Now, moving on, what is the long-term plan of bringing over 600K Chinese students into the American education system? So the timing of this is interesting because school just started. So are these people coming in now? Are they coming in next spring? Are they coming in next year? So when exactly is this happening? And I did see an interesting tweet on Twitter, and basically it was saying that the timing was interesting as well, but it was in reference to school budgets. And so it was basically saying that Trump is playing this 3D chess, and he's kind of like screwing with people's budgeting and numbers, and then he may cut off funding or something like that. And so I'm not quite there yet in terms of my thinking, because I'm still really just trying to figure out what this is even about as far as bringing over foreign students to take up slots in the American education system. But I did think that it was interesting, the timing of this, because school literally just started. So we know that this shouldn't happen right away, at least. And then in terms of long term, what happens when these 600K students graduate? Are we back in the same situation where we have empty slots that we need to fill in order to prevent the bottom 15 again from failing out of business? And so what is the solution at that point? And this brought me to the interview that I covered with Thomas Massey and Theo Vaughn, and he was really talking about how politicians and people in Congress, they're making decisions right now that aren't really considering the next generation, and how we're kind of, I guess, borrowing from the future to take care of now without really considering what is going to be the impact on people in the future. So again, if you're bringing over 600K Chinese students and they're getting 4-year degrees or whatever the situation is, what happens in 4 years when these students graduate? The other thing I was curious about is this going to be on a rollout basis? If you are bringing over 400 to 600K students, are they all coming here at one time? Is it a little bit each year until you get 600K or whatever the number is? How exactly does that work? And then what happens when all of these students graduate? What is the solution at that point if there's still a lot of empty slots in the American education system? Alrighty, so those are my thoughts on the whole conversation around potentially having 600K Chinese students come to America to learn and get an education. I personally don't see an issue with Chinese people or foreign people coming over to the United States, but I also don't like the idea of opportunities being taken away from American students to get an education and to learn. If there are no educational opportunities for some people, because I know not everyone goes to college, but the people who do want to go to college and are actually able to should be able to have those opportunities to get into the schools that they want, because again, this is a rite of passage in America to go to college and have a college experience. Now, in terms of those people who are probably never planning to go to college and wanting to go to trade schools, they probably will not be as impacted by this. I do wonder what the long-term implications of this are going to be. Are people going to perceive higher education differently? Are more Americans going to be routed to trade schools and trade industries, especially with them talking about bringing jobs back to America? They're talking about bringing basically manufacturing and blue-collar jobs back to America. So you do need people who are kind of learning those skills so that they can fill those jobs. If you have everyone focused on higher education and getting certain degrees, they're not going to be as likely to take those jobs that you are bringing back to America. Yeah, so I'm not sure what you guys think about this video or what thoughts you guys have about this whole conversation around foreign students coming into the American education system. Definitely let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.